Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, and today I would love to share with you a method to get running configurations from plenty of devices in your infrastructure in less than a minute. And in order to accomplish this task, we're going to use a framework called Nornir. Basically, Nornir is an automation framework written in Python to be used with Python. And in very simple terms, it's a tool like Ansible, but much better in terms of scalability and extensibility. Also, you have the ability to customize your scripts based on your desires. So you can write a script and use this framework to interact with a bunch of devices. Nornir uses different Python libraries to connect to devices such as NetMiko, Paramiko, Napalm, and all those famous and very useful libraries. So you don't have to learn any new library to work with devices. You already know them, and now with Nornir framework, you can use multiple libraries at the same time. Also, the best benefit, in my opinion, which Nornir provides is something called multi-threading. So multi-threading is something, is a concept of doing some task at the same time. So simultaneously doing something and accomplishing results in a very quick fashion. And as you can see, I have my configuration YAML file. This file is necessary to construct Nornir based solution. So all we have to do here is just identify our inventory and our runner. And runner is the object which will allow us to connect to a lot of devices at the same time. As you can see, this num workers option here, we use this option to identify the amount of workers, and workers are basically threads. So I want to have 300 threads maximum to be activated at the same time, right? And you will also need to create an inventory folder where you will store your defaults file, where you can put your credentials, your groups file, and your hosts file, right? So it can consist just from host file also, where you can basically indicate everything. But as a best practice, it's better to actually create those two files also to be able to indicate all your information in a very organized fashion. So as you can see, this is my hosts file. In my hosts file, I have all the hosts that I want to connect to get backup configuration from, or to send any configuration. Basically, in this hosts file, you indicate all the devices, hosts, and appliances in your infrastructure. So as you can see, in this file, I have 239 hosts, right, devices, and they are basically routers. And I want to fetch configuration from all of those devices at the same time in less than a minute and create a backup txt file, which I will store in my backup folder. So let's get started to construct the script. First, I'm going to import some necessary libraries to construct my folder where I will store configuration file. I'm going to import datetime module to be able to name my files, my configuration files, based on the date, so I can easily identify at which date my script fetched those configuration files, right? And then we're actually going to add libraries and modules to be able to activate our Nornir framework. So the first module is something called init Nornir, right? Then we should get probably some plugins. So to add some other libraries to Nornir framework, we have the concept of plugins. We're basically indicating a different library, and we're adding plugins to be able to use their content. So in this particular case, I'm going to use Napalm's get method to be able to fetch configuration file from devices, and then we can also get some tasks. Okay, so task from Nornir. Utils, yeah, from Nornir utilities, plugins, and tasks, yes, files, import, write file. So we'll need this to write configuration output to a txt file where we'll store this, right? basically that's just output written to txt. And then I will get my task, because Nornir uses the concept of task to run certain amount of configuration towards devices, just like Ansible does, right? And I'm just going to import this task module, right? And lastly, for handling exceptions and errors, I'm going to add some task errors. So if we have some errors during the task, we'll just skip them and continue. No, not execution, probably subtask error. Okay. So first I'm going to create a variable. You can name it anything. I'm going to create an R with Nornir. I'm calling my init Nornir module, and I am going to indicate config file where I instruct Nornir to use certain amount of threads and inventory. Where is my inventory? Okay, so it's my config YAML file. So I'm just going to put its name over here. Done. So our Nornir object is ready. Now we can actually create a function which will do the main task of this project, which is getting backup, right? So I'm going to name it backup task, and I'm going to bring in task module, right? So I will have a directory for configurations. I'm going to say configuration directory, where I will have the name of my backups. Let's say backups, pretty basic, right? And let me add double quotes just in case. And then we'll have directory where I will store my devices. I'm going to say device names, device directory. And device directory is going to be basically something inside configuration directory, obviously. So I'm just adding folder path here, and I'm going to put target host name. So this is basically, it will go to host, it will search the host in host file, for example this one, and it will grab its name, right? So that this part is going to be the name. So this is a host object, and the very first line indicates the name of the host. So that's what we'll get here. So that will be our txt file's name to be able to distinguish between devices, right? And then I'm just going to add some has statements to be able to put them on my directories, right? So if this directory already exists, you don't have to create it again. So this exists, okay, we'll do just that. And the same, we have to put the same pretty much for device directory. So I'm just going to copy that, paste that, and change that part, right? Okay, that's cool. Now we can actually write the main logic. I will write it in between try and except methods. So let's say result is equal to is assigned to task run. Task is going to be napalm get. Basically, this will activate napalm library and will use its get, let's say, function to get configuration, and to indicate that we need just configuration. I'm going to use something called getters. It's a napalm concept. It basically gets and data from operational data from device, and I'm going to indicate config. So get config. I'm going to run this task. I have to indicate just like this. And so what we have to do is task is going to be, we have to write the output of this, right, to the txt file. So I have to bring in our write file module. Also, I have to indicate the file name, and file name will be something we constructed using our PassWhip module. So first we'll have device directory, and we'll put the name there, and then I'm just going to add the current file name. So the current file name will be based on the current date. So for example, if today is 13th of February, it's just going to put this date as a file name so that we can easily distinguish when we actually got this configuration, backup configuration file to be able to easily apply backups afterwards. And at the very end, we have to add .txt because that's going to be .txt text file, a simple text file, nothing special, right? So everything looks good. Let me think what we should add. Of course, the most important part is the content. So the content is basically output of this command. Output of this command will be stored like this. To understand why I'm using this particular modules to store content of the output file, you have to read the documentation of Napalm and Nornir, where you will understand why we do it. So this is basically different for each platform. In my case, it's iOS XR platform. That's why my output will have configuration dictionary file, and within that configuration dictionary file, we'll have another key, which is running key, and the value of this running is going to be our actual running configuration file. That's how it works, right? And let me handle exception here. I'm just going to add Nornir's subtask error, and if I'm not mistaken, we had connection error just in case if we couldn't connect to a device, if it's unavailable, right, or unreachable. Let's say failed to get config from this particular file and from this particular host name. Let's say from this particular host name, and it will be indicated there in case if you want to troubleshoot, understand why. And that's it. Our function construction is over, and now all we have to do is basically run this script and call this function. So to call this function, I'm going to first run our nr object, right? And in parentheses, we have to indicate the name of our task. You can indicate whatever you want. So I'm just going to say, for example, backup creation, for example, right? And we have to call this function by indicating it in task variable, right? That looks fine. So our script is ready, and now I'm going to call my script. It's located just over here, as you can see. So I'm just going to say Python, and as you can see, we don't have any folder here indicating like our backup folder. So after running the script, we should get a new folder in this directory called backup, and inside this folder we must have backup configurations, running configurations of devices in our inventory, and the name of this configuration files has to be the current dates, which is in this case 13th of February. So now we can execute the script, but before the script execution, I would love to demonstrate how fast and quick Nornir handles all the connections via multi-threading. And to do this, I'm just going to measure the execution time of this particular script. So before running the script, I'm going to bring up my clock and measure the time of execution. So let's just do that. I'm going to start timer and start the script. Now all we have to do is wait, and I will stop this timer whenever the script finishes execution. So far 15 seconds. Right, we're already starting interacting with devices. You can see the output shows some devices with failed connections, and the reason for that is those devices are not available yet. So meaning we don't have a connection established towards their direction, not yet, but they are indicated in inventory. That's why script tries to connect with each of them. But whenever you have full connection, you're not going to get any of this. So it's basically a networking side issue. We're already hitting 1 minute. It's not bad for over 200 devices. And also there is also time going to create new folders and new txt files. Okay, done. So my script has finished, as you can see, and the entire process took 1 minute 14 seconds. It is crazy. It's crazy because we are literally connecting to more than 200 devices at the same time, simultaneously, thanks to multi-threading feature of Napalm framework. And we are getting the running configuration, which is long in most of devices, and we're saving them in txt file, and we're also creating folders per each device. Now let's go and check if we have this new folder, and we do have folder called backups. Now let's check the content of this folder. Inside this folder, we have subfolders with the host names of all the devices in our inventory, right? And if we go to, let's say, one of them, this one, for example, we have a txt file. And this txt file is named by current date, which is, again, 13th of February. So if I open up the script, I will have a configuration file over here, right? So that's it. So in some devices, yeah, maybe you will not, I could not able to see the configuration. And the reason for that is because we don't have networking connection to this device yet, right? And basically, when we'll have a connection, when we can reach this device, we'll also have the running configuration, right? So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you have any other wishes or desires about possible next videos, please share it with me